girlies, hello chosen ones, hello black sheep. I'm Jenna, your host of the Black Sheep Society podcast. Today's episode is going to be short, sweet, and to the point, but I have a lot of exciting news for the channel. So we're going to have some merch that I'm currently working on for the podcast, for the YouTube channel, Karma Walking, for my TikTok channel. Some of it's going to be t-shirts, some of it's going to be hoodies, some of it will be like tote bags, lots of different stuff. It's all going to be available on my Amazon merch store. It's not ready yet, so once all of the products are up and listed, I will gladly demonstrate and post that. I'm waiting for 2 of the t-shirts I already ordered to be here, and then I will have more in the works. So you guys will see me wear some of those. I'm super excited to show you. So that's the first announcement. The second one is we're going to have our first kind of co-host. I'm going to have a guest on here soon. I don't know the exact date just yet, but you will see him in a future podcast. His name is Alan. He's one of my sons. And we had a really awesome conversation today about spirituality, religion, different things with like, different topics of deities and spirit guides and animals and all sorts of stuff. So I asked him if he would ever want to willingly come on and discuss some of these things. And he said, yeah, sure, absolutely. So fingers crossed that'll be a very, very soon thing that happens. And I'm very excited to like share all of the details. So those are the first 2 announcements. So today's topic of interest is going to be about spirituality and like how in the world did we come to the beliefs that we have. And so while I grew up in a Christian household and I, went to church very young and, read the Bible and things like that, went to Bible study, Sunday school class, all those things, right? I used to be really, really active in church. Over the years of my life, certain things in my life kind of led me down different paths and had me explore different things. And, I've dabbled and researched certain religions and different spiritual practices, and there's tons of them out there, right? Tons and tons of them. And I kind of wanted to know, like, where did it all start and where did these things come from? And why do we really believe the things we believe? And why do we practice the things that we do? And I found that on my journey, and remember, this is my own 2 cents, and I'm not trying to sway anybody one way or the other, but in my world, I realized that, and even my son and I were talking about this today, he said, the more and more that I prayed, the less and less I got answers. And I felt that way too. And so I felt really, really lost for a long time. And it took me until I was well into my 30s to really decide what it is that I believed in at my core. So while I still consider myself a Christian loosely, I am a believer in God, God, source, spirit, the universe. You'll hear me say that in my tarot readings and stuff, because to me, they're kind of like one and the same. How do we know that it's like a big sky daddy? I feel like a lot of people think that it's like a man in the clouds. Well, I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that we all came from a point of creation. And I used to really believe in like the Big Bang Theory and science, and that seemed a little easier to swallow because it was a little more tangible, right? You had something to kind of base creation on. And it seemed really implausible that maybe man was created from a speck of dust and woman was created from a rib, and like all of these things just seemed so fantasy land, right? It was hard to wrap your head around. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with like organized religion as opposed to faith and spirituality, because it's a lot harder to accept some of those things into our actual reality. And so I'm one of those people. And I fully admit that I struggle with my religion, not my faith. My faith is something that's pretty solid, and it has been for most of my life. Now, there have been times in my life that I've really doubted, my connection and things like that when I was much younger. I remember as a young teenager, I was about 12 or 13, I lost both of my grandmothers about 6 months apart, totally different circumstances. And that kind of shook me for a long time. It was like I couldn't understand how a loving God would take people that in my eyes were perfect. Like there was nothing wrong with them. There was no reason to take them so early in life. And so that was something that I struggled with for many, many years. I was really angry at God. I was really angry with just life in general. Most teenagers kind of are at some point. And so as I got into my 20s and into my 30s, I started to explore more of like, well, what does this religion believe in? And like, what is the core belief of this? And, you know, what do these different things believe in? And how does all that work? And so that kind of led me on a spiritual path versus a religious path. And so this was one of the topics that my son and I were discussing today, as well as he also feels that way, that he's more connected to like spiritual things, nature, and he's been seeing different signs that are pertinent to what's going on in his life. And one of those is crows. And I have a little story about crows too. A couple weeks ago, my stepdaughter and I were walking our dogs, and I heard a caw very loud above me. And I look up, and it's a giant crow flying above us. And I laughingly said, "There goes my crow." You know, it's following us. So he's been seeing crows. First it was a single, and now it's in pairs. And as I was pulling some tarot cards for him, we do that from time to time, I happen to think of a deck that I have that has Odin and Freya, and they're Norse deities, Norse gods of Norse mythology. And so I knew I had a deck with those. So I pulled it out and I read the message just to see. What was funny is when I opened the deck to look for Odin specifically, Freya was with him. And I thought, okay, well, that's pertinent. You know, that really doesn't happen that they come out as a pair, and they did. And as we were talking, he was looking out his window, and he noticed a crow had just flown by his window, and my office is facing, like, I have a window behind the camera where I'm facing, and I saw one as well. And so I feel like spirit is always around us. They're always trying to connect with us, give us signs, give us symbols, give us synchronicity. There's a podcast all about those different things, literally called Signs, Symbols, and Synchronicities. So I feel like it's important that we engage with spirit. You know, we need to know what spirits we're engaging with, first of all, because some are good and some are bad. But as above, so below, right? We need the balance. We need the light and the dark to create that balance. And we have light and dark within us as well. And so that's what I was explaining to him, is sometimes at our core, at our soul level, things will appear to us that we need for confirmation, like the crows coming through. And so ravens are associated with Odin, but I feel like crows are also messengers of the spiritual realm. And so are there signs that are showing up in your life that spirit's trying to show you? Is it repeating numbers? Is it insects? Is it birds? Is it certain pieces of music? Are there things in your life that are repeating themes? Because spirit's always trying to get your attention. And so I would recommend that you pay attention to that. So when he comes on the podcast, we are going to discuss, you know, all of these different things, different viewpoints, because I feel like he also is an old soul trapped in a young body. And I've thought that for many, many years, since he was very small. He reminds me of my grandfather that I was super close to. And I fully believe that he was reincarnated as my child in this lifetime. And he has all this wisdom that he needs to be able to share. And so I really think that that would be interesting to watch. So check that out. It's coming sometime in the near future. But the point of this is that I feel like I'm being on a spiritual journey to really share knowledge, things that I've learned over my lifetime, maybe not just this lifetime, other lifetimes too. And so I really feel drawn to share that, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with religion, not necessarily faith, not necessarily spirituality, but religion. And the reason is that it's kind of, and this is again my own personal 2 cents, but I feel like religion is a part of like control and manipulation. And so current events, right? The Catholic Pope just passed away either Easter or the day after Easter, I guess, depending on where you are in the world. And some people are saying that they think it's a body double. Some people are saying that he died a long time ago, like Mandela effect type stuff. That could be a whole other podcast that we discuss, Mandela effects. But I feel like there's this need to kind of scratch the surface or dig a little deeper of what is really going on. You know, like the powers that be that kind of control everything, that pull the puppet strings behind the Iron Curtain and all that stuff. What is really going on? What secrets are they so afraid that the masses are going to find out? Because I feel like that's really where the control comes from, right? If they're the ones who hold the key to like all of the secrets, if they're the ones who hold the key to all the money, all of these things, the people that make the laws and the rules, well then how does the little guy, us down here in the real world, how do we stack up against that? we kind of can't, right? So then we need like some sort of supernatural intervention to be able to help us. And so what I was talking about with my son was that, sometimes I feel like I'm beating my head against a brick wall when I pray to God, because I feel like there's a lot of times I just don't get answers, and so that's really frustrating. And he said the same thing. He said, I'm done just praying to God because I get nowhere, but I pray to a deity and I get an answer immediately. And I said, I've had the same experience. So when he was small, I always felt like he was connected to like Norse mythology, and I don't know why, but I just always did. A couple of my other sons, same thing. I always felt like they had more of a connection to that. My oldest son, he tells me that he feels really drawn to Loki, which is, it would have been like Thor's adoptive brother, and Loki is a chaos god, and so like mischief and kind of making things turn on their ear. And my oldest son would be considered like a chaos witch. And so I feel like it's something that he thrives on. He likes to watch things play out. It's amusing for him. And so he really resonates with Loki. My third son, I feel like he definitely likes Thor, but he's always been into mythology and mysticism. And he actually wanted to get a degree in angels and demonology, which is a real thing. Colleges actually offer that. And so I thought that would be super intriguing, just to kind of study all of these things and kind of dig a little deeper and kind of get to like the philosophy or the theologian type stuff of uncovering what was really said or what really happened way back when, and did some of these things exist, did some of them not. So like there's a lot of, I can't think of the word right now, but there's just a lot of knowledge to be had basically. And so the long and the short of this is that I myself have had encounters with deities, right? I'm a medium, so I pick up on energy, but I've had encounters with Lilith. If you're unfamiliar with her, she was Adam's first wife in the Bible, and that part is left out. There's several books in the Bible that have been rewritten or left out completely, as far as like the New King James Version. There we go, words are difficult. And I feel like the two main books that we were talking about is the book of Enoch and the book of Judas. And my son actually brought up the book of Judas, and I said, it's crazy how some of these things were purposefully left out and the books rewritten to kind of facilitate their narrative, right? So if you think of like the Renaissance era, when King James era stuff would have happened, it was very much, there was a lot of wars, there was a lot of killing, there was a lot of like the Catholic Church trying to convert all of the pagans into Christians and things like that. And so there was this change of power, and it was purposely for control. And so if you're being manipulated to change what you grew up believing into something completely different, then there's going to be resistance, right? And so I feel like we're kind of experiencing that again in modern times of maybe not all of us really believe in the confines of organized religion. Maybe we're more spiritual in nature. Maybe some of us are going back to our pagan roots, myself included, right? And why does that make it wrong? Just because certain parts of the world believe one thing and other parts of the world believe another doesn't make either one of them wrong, right? There's so many commonalities in all religions that I've come across, right? There's always some sort of depiction of an angel. There's some sort of depiction of like devil or demonic energy, negative forces. There's always some sort of higher power, prophet, savior, things like that. There's always like commonalities in all of these different things. And so if you start to see, okay, well, what do they all have in common? And what do they all kind of split apart and have differences in? You start to see that, wow, what we really do believe at our core is really, really similar, right? All the way across the globe, all different nationalities, all different belief systems. And so I feel like we're going to start to see more similarities in people of different races, religions, backgrounds coming together and uniting. And that's what the powers that be don't want, right? They don't want us to unite. They don't want us to see that we're really more alike than we are different, no matter where we come from, what we look like, what we do, status, money, like none of that actually matters in the grand scheme of things. At our core, we're all the same. And so that's one of the things we were discussing as well. We were also talking about how there's like so many places around the world that don't think like the United States does, right? And that's why we've always been kind of the redheaded stepchild, for lack of a better way to put it. But we've always been the one in the United States that it's like some countries look up to us only because they think that we're free and we're wealthy. And when people from other foreign places come here, they realize that's not necessarily the case, right? We're not as free as we'd like to believe that we are. Yeah, we have certain things that are different from other countries that allow us certain freedoms, but in reality, a lot of us are stuck. A lot of us are financially really stuck. A lot of us are in lives that are unfulfilling, things like that. Some of us are just like tied to a 9-to-5 that's killing us, things like that. And so we hold on to this belief that we're really truly free, but are we? You know, in the grand scheme of things, are we truly free? Or you could look at other places around the world. Let's take like Africa, for instance, right? Maybe certain parts of it are still remote villages that don't have much, right? Monetarily, they don't. But do they have joy in their life? Do they have a sense of community, a sense of family? Where here in America, where we have all this technology and all of these things, right? Material things, a lot of people are really struggling, like mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of these things, like they're not where they want to be. So are you truly free? And I feel like by letting go of all these things in our life that are like a ball and chain, they hold us back or they weigh us down, we're learning how to escape the confines of like the imprisonment that I feel like a lot of us deal with. That's why you hear about so many people that want to go live off grid. Well, why do they want to do that, right? Why would you want to give up modern conveniences, technology, all those things, comfortable home to live in, cars to drive, for starting over, basically living like you're homeless out in the middle of the wilderness? Because it helps you connect to Mother Nature. It helps you connect to where you really truly come from. It helps you connect to what matters, right? And so that's one of the things we were discussing. A lot of people are struggling in life because they're unhappy. Their priorities are different than maybe they were 100 years ago. They're not connected to Mother Nature anymore. They're not grounding in their energy. They're not spending time working the land. They're not spending time outdoors in sunshine and fresh air. Instead, we're in like office buildings. We're indoors where we're in artificial lighting like fluorescents and LEDs that we weren't designed to live that way. And so it creates a lot of havoc. One of my children, well, all of them at some point, but my middle son is really struggling with chronic migraines right now. We're trying to find the cause of that. And part of it, I feel like, is his spiritual gifts are amplifying and awakening. So I was talking to my other son, Alan, about that today. And I said, you know, we've all had that. Like, Alan's had that, Trace has had that, like all my boys have had that. I had it as well as a young adult. And so all of these things are starting to amplify. And I know that all of my children have spiritual gifts as well, right? And so I feel like Spirit is trying to energetically kind of shift everybody to where they need to be if you're doing the work, right? And what does that mean? Well, are you doing shadow work? Are you owning all of the lost or dark aspects of yourself to bring it into the light to integrate? And if you're not, you should be. And if you're not, you probably need to be in order to advance to the 5D. What is the 5D, Jenna? Well, it's Christ consciousness, it's spiritual awakening, it's ascension, it's the new earth, for the long and the short of it. And yes, it's very real. And so simultaneously, we're going to be living in like 2 different dimensions for a while. And part of that is we're going to see all of the like death, destruction, war, sacrifice, hardships in the 3D, in the physical reality that we still have to live in. And our light body, our spiritual essence is ascending, it's growing, it's changing. Our DNA is turning into a light grid and a crystalline body. And so our meat suit, our body that we live in, has to ascend, it has to vibrate differently and at a higher frequency for us to align with this new planetary shift, right? So if we take biblical context and we apply that to what I'm talking about, the book of Revelations describes how old ways fall away, things are going to be completely dismantled, and things start to change, right? And so we're starting to actually see that play out almost word for word in certain parts of that. So I feel like we already have the diagram, or we already have the blueprint going on for what is changing. The question is, which part of the timeline are you going to end up in? Hopefully you're going to ascend. You're going to be in the 5D with all of the other like-minded individuals. If you're not, you will have time to change and transform, but it's going to have to be at a more accelerated rate in order to actually achieve that. So what we are doing is we're going through like several hundred years of evolution and elevation in like a decade or less. And so that puts a tremendous toll on our bodies. It puts a tremendous toll on our planet because things are energetically shifting. So old systems are being dismantled. We're also in the age of Aquarius, which tells us that technologically we're going to advance. I feel like we're also going to see things all over the world, like globally change in governments and social structures to where things are less separate in like the class systems and more, they're giving me the word intertwined, but more on like an even level playing field as opposed to so much separate. And that all starts from within, right? When we realize that the powers that be want division, they want war, right? Because it feeds into their narrative of separation and keeping us from really source energy, where we all come from, and to ignore our intuition and calcifying our pineal gland that sits inside of our brain, which is really our powerhouse for connecting to God, source, spirit energy, and more importantly, our intuition. That by controlling all of that, by poisoning us in our food, water, air, land, everything that we eat or breathe or put on our body, that all of these things are part of the package deal to control the masses, right? And there's this really great meme that I saw a long time ago, and I'll try and find it and attach it at the end of the video, but it's, I want to say it's like a Monopoly board or something, and there's people that are like on all fours underneath it holding it up, and then there's people around it that are moving the pieces around to play the game. And so the little script at the bottom says something about what they don't realize is that if they just stand up, the game is over, right? So that's exactly what's about to happen in our world. Hopefully within the next couple of years, we start to see, not that I want to see like uprisings or anything, but we need to dismantle what's not working, right? And so we can rebuild better, so that we can rebuild something that's more equal, something that's beneficial to everybody, right? Because we're all humans at our core. So the long and short of that is, what if we were in a world where there was no poverty, where everybody had exactly what they needed, where there wasn't wars, where every homeless person had a home, had a job, and not jobs in like the 9-to-5 sense of the word jobs, but had meaningful purpose that they got paid to exist, right? That's 5D. So I feel like we're going to start to see these miraculous changes happen, and I feel like it is a miracle because we've been in this oppressive state for so many millennia. It feels like, it really does feel like it's been millennia, that something has got to give, right? It's like, what is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back? What is it really going to take before the people, the masses, stand up and fight for what they want? When do we regain control, right? The government works for us. We, the people, the government works for us. We elect them. We put them in power. And if they're not doing their job, then we need to remove them from power. And we need to put like-minded people in there that will actually fulfill their job, right? Otherwise, it's not working. So I feel like we are going to start to see that. I don't know an exact timeline to give you for that, but Spirit does give me messages sometimes that are very cut and dry and do definitely give me timelines. So if that happens, I'll make another video. But I do feel like we're going to start to see major things change with governments in the next 3 years specifically. So let's see, 2025, 26, 27, 28. So by 2029, we're going to have like a completely new system in place is what Spirit tells me. And I feel like globally, things are really going to change. Let's say somebody's been in power like dictatorships for decades. I feel like they'll be removed from power. Specifics I don't have on that just yet. But I do feel like there's going to be some changes in South America. I feel like there's going to be some changes with Europe and the European unions. I feel like commoners are going to be in power, and that's a big, big change because especially in Europe, that's not how things are done, especially in like the United Kingdom. It's a monarchy, but I feel like something is about to change there in the next couple of years. So you heard it here first. A lot of these are channeled messages and predictive in nature, so no, they haven't happened yet, but I do feel like it's going to happen. I also feel like we're going to see kingdoms fall. Specifically, I feel like King Charles will either be removed from the throne or voluntarily step down, and I feel like he passes away shortly thereafter. I feel like in like Ireland and Scotland, I feel like commoners are actually going to be the ones who are in charge, not any sort of parliament or monarchy. I feel like in, let's see, in like what we know as third world countries like Africa, I feel like they're going to become a little bit more evolved, but they're also going to hold on to like their generational, what is the right way to put that? Like where they come from, their roots of who they are at their core. Like I feel like remote villages are also going to start to have technologies and things that they didn't used to have to help them be more productive. But I feel like they're going to continue their way of life for the better part of what they do. So whether that's working the land, farmers, things like that, I feel like they're still going to do that, but technology is going to help them to advance to be better off. I feel like more of the people like the Amish that were kind of on the outskirts of the rest of the civilized Western world, I feel like more people are going to try and like buy from small businesses like the Amish because they want natural things as opposed to processed things. I feel like our food supply is drastically going to change where it's more farm to table than mass produced, which temporarily is going to cause some issues. But I feel like we're going to start to see massive, massive changes in our food supply. We're going to start to see massive changes in like the quality of our air, the quality of our water, things like that. Like there's big, big changes that I feel like are going to be coming in the next 3 years. So buckle up because it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride during the transition. There's also going to be opposition. There's people that do not want these changes to happen, right? Because it's big money. I feel like we're also going to see some changes in the pharmaceutical companies. I feel like we're going to start to see certain really big names go under, go bankrupt and go completely out of business because they won't be able to make the changes, or the government may actually shut some of them down. I feel like we're going to have supply chain issues temporarily for about a year and a half time frame, starting pretty soon. I would say like by June of this year, 2025. And it's until we get the kinks ironed out. So obviously there's a lot of friction between foreign agencies with our government, and I feel like we're going to start to see some of that friction kind of bubble up to the surface before things get resolved. So everybody's playing hardball right now, but we have to find common ground, and that's the issue at hand, is that there needs to be common ground in some of these things. So get ready for some big changes to come forward. I feel like it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. So not that I'm ever fear-mongering. I just like to give people information so that they can plan accordingly. So if you know you're going to need like life-saving medication, try and get at least a few months supply of that ahead of time if at all possible. If you can't, you're going to be okay. I have faith in that. However, Most people are struggling financially and don't have the means to do that. So if you don't, do what you can do. If you can buy an extra, can of green beans at the grocery store for under $1, and you can do that every time you go grocery shopping, do something like that. If you can buy an extra bag of rice or something every time you go, do something like that. So you have little bits that you need to hold you over and get you through. Plant a garden if you're able to. I'm going to plant my garden in little potted plants this year, and we're going to see how well it does. Even if you don't have a yard that you can grow things, grow them on your kitchen table, in your, kitchen window if you have one. Grow them on a patio if you have a patio, things like that. There are ways that you can do things to help yourself. And maybe it's something small. Maybe you grow one little tomato plant, but that tomato plant helps get you through the rough time or whatever. Do the little bits that you can do, and I promise you it will be enough. But Spirit's trying to show up and show off and give you signs for your everyday life, things that we need to go towards, things we need to leave behind. So what are those things that Spirit's trying to show you? Are you paying attention to the clues? If you start to see things that are repeating signs, look them up and find out what the spiritual meaning of those things are, because I promise you there's a message in there. Do you connect to God, Source, Spirit, the universe? Do you have one deity that stands out to you more than others? Are you a firm Catholic? Are you a Jewish person? Are you Hindu? Are you Buddhist? What are you? What do you believe at your core? I'm a spiritualist. I fully believe in spirituality. I believe we connect to the ethers. I believe our soul exists outside of our body in the physical sense, and I feel like our soul lives on forever. It's energy. So no matter what you believe, you're welcome here. We accept everybody over here. Black sheep are exactly that, right? We're the outcasts, but we're the chosen ones. And so I want everybody to know that I am not going to ever judge you. Like, if you want to come through and you're like, hey, I'm this, and I really would love to, discuss my point of view. Let's discuss. That's what we're here to do. This podcast is about sharing knowledge of all walks of life, because the more that we find out that we have in common, the less they're able to separate us. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.